even though we're in Iraq, this was the first, we're going into combat now. And I remember just the stress, the anxiety, the fear of, man, I hope this goes good. Bravo Company went into the city and they got attacked. And I was an Alpha Company and we were the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force. So when they got attacked, here we go. We got to go help them out and reinforce them. When that call came over the radio and you could hear the gunfire and explosions and we got to go help them, I was scared.
Became real, right?
It became very real, real quick.
Yep.
And so the company commander hollers at me, you know, Barrett, grab your bag, let's go. And so I grab my radio bag and the ramp drops on this truck and now I'm getting on the streets of Iraq for the first time. There's a firefight going on not too far away. Here we go. And so we went and retrieved them and told them, hey, you're here, you should be back there, pull your platoon back. And first platoon was about 2 blocks away where he had told them to go, and the bad guys were 2 or 3 blocks away, and
you're caught in the middle.
And interrupted, and I said, sir, first platoon's gone, and there's dudes right there. And I was scared. Mm-hmm. I was really scared at that point. And I remember he looked at me and he just said, are you ready to run? You know, 2 guys ain't gonna fight all them. We got to get back to where the platoon is. And I said, yeah, roger that. And we came out of that alley and, you know, single file. He was right in front of me and just running. And I remember when we came out and started running, the bullets started flying.
Really?
And,
they were firing at you?
They started firing at us, and first platoon couldn't fire back. We're in the way. We're running down the sidewalk, you know, and I remember bullets hitting the brick wall next to us. And I remember, you know, brick fragments. I could feel them. And I remember with my head down, I could see dirt where bullets are hitting around our feet. And I remember, like, in that moment, all I could think is run faster, you know. And so we made it back to first platoon. Once we cleared, they could engage. And honestly, the rest of the day is kind of a blur. You know, there was an engagement. We fought our way out of the city there and got back that night. When all the adrenaline subsides and everything, your body kind of goes back to normal. I was struck with this immense terror and fear. You know, reality, again, I was like, I could have died today. To the trucks, and there was a guy on my truck named Chris, and he was an old man. Now, we were young. He was 34, so old man. And he was a corporal. Well, he had served in the Marines during the first Gulf War. And so I kind of pulled him aside. You know, he had seen some combat, and my head was really messed up. I got shot at today. Like, again, here's the reality and the fear. Like, I could have died today, first time. And I pulled Chris aside, and I was trying to confide in him. You know, man, Chris, how do I get my head right? How do I not let this
affect me
and affect my decisions and affect my performance? You know, and he was a gold-hearted country boy from Alabama, and he just kind of gave this chuckle. You know, and I said, what's so funny? And he says, well, you get used to it. I said, get used to what? Getting shot at? He goes, yeah. And I thought he was crazy.
Yeah. How do you ever get used to getting shot at?
That's insane. So the fighting continued, and guys continued to get wounded. It seemed like every day. I'm sure it wasn't every day, but it felt like every day somebody was getting wounded. April 8th of 2007, that year it was Easter Sunday, and you know we don't take holidays off when you're in a fight. And this was the first time that losing somebody kind of struck me. We lost Jesse Williams that day, and he was a friend of mine. You know, we had partied in the barracks and we had hung out. And Jesse was, first and foremost, he was a warrior. The guy wasn't scared of anything. But Jesse was an amazing human being. He had a wife and a little daughter at home that was born right before we deployed. Jesse was friends with everybody. Everybody loved him. And I remember we got the call on the radio that somebody had been shot by a sniper. And it turned out it was Jesse Williams. And I remember praying as they brought in the Black Hawk, you know, the medevac to come get him and fly him to a hospital somewhere. I just remember praying for an Easter miracle, you know, that not Jesse Williams. You know, we had, leading up to that, we had lost Casey Mellon in Mosul. We had lost Billy Ferris in Baghdad. We had lost Brian Chevalier the first day in Bakuba. I did not personally know any of those guys. I mean, it's terrible, you know, and we don't want to lose any of our brothers in arms, whether you know them or not. But when Jesse died, that was the first time I cried in combat, because he was a friend of mine. I mean, we weren't best friends, you know, but he was a friend of mine, and it was very, I guess it became very personal at that point, you know, and it angered me. It angered me towards these bad guys that we were fighting, that now they've killed one of my friends, you know, and it's hard not to take it personal. The next morning, May 6th, somewhere around sunrise, somebody comes running into the tent. Get up, you know, got to go to the operations center. Because even though I was on the base, I was working in the operations center now, right? I don't just get to lay around for 10 days. There's still things that can be done on the base. And so I ran over to the operations center, and there was my element, the colonel's element, had gotten ambushed. They were dismounted from their vehicles, doing a foot patrol in the city, and they had a machine gun nest and some other things that were ambushing them. And Alf Company was right in the area, and they had dispatched a vehicle over there to reinforce and help. And as that vehicle rounded the corner to reinforce the guys that I should have been on the street with, there was a deep buried IED, which is buried under the road, that detonated and catastrophically destroyed the vehicle. From the guys on the ground, it blew it, you know, back over nose, landed on its roof. There's still a firefight going on. You know, people run to rescue the vehicle, and they had said that when they got there, the floor and the roof were gone. All that was left was the walls and the engine in the front and the driver's compartment. Where is everybody? You know, there's 6 guys, well, 7. There was a reporter as well on that truck. So there were 7 people in the back of that truck, and there was not a person to be found. They started hearing somebody yelling, and it was the driver, and he was alive. Excuse me. Larry Clark was the driver of that truck. And I guess when the bomb blew and the truck flipped, the overpressure inside the truck, the drivers have a hatch that they get in and out of that locks. And I guess that the overpressure blew that hatch open, and as they went upside down, he's got a seatbelt on, but natural human reaction, he went like this as it went upside down. Well, when the truck landed, it slammed that hatch down and it smashed his hand. So his hand was pinned, you know, under a 24-ton vehicle. And so there was a lot of chaos going on. They were trying to recover Larry and get him out of there. There's still an ambush and firefight going on. I think another IED got detonated down the road on another vehicle at the same, you know, in the near proximity there. And they were able to get Larry out of there. He had smashed his hand and had some damage to his hand, but I think other than that, he was okay. I mean, obviously mentally, you know, that's going to take a toll that everybody, your friends in your truck just got killed. But I think physically, I think the hand was the only thing that happened to him. And that was a horrible day, and horrible's an understatement. The guys on that truck, 3 of them had deployed previously on the 03-04 deployment. 2 of them were friends of mine. Romeo and Harkins, they were friends of mine and had deployed before. Sergeant Lewis had deployed before. 2 of the other guys I had trained as radio operators. You know, all these, you know, like I was a radio operator at a company level and then again at a battalion level. Well, all of the lieutenants, the platoon leaders, have radio operators. Those guys are not my MOS. They are an infantry guy that gets trained how to use a radio. So Bradshaw and Alexander, you know, I knew them quite well because I had trained them to be radio operators. And then there was a very young man named Purcell on that truck that I never met. But he was 18 years old. And what I heard was that he had went through basic training and had got assigned to Fort Lewis our home base, and had got assigned to our battalion. And at that point, we were taking so many losses, he got shipped over as like a replacement. And I think he had been in country less than 2 weeks and was on this truck and got killed. And that, I didn't know him, but that was heartbreaking. That this 18-year-old kid that had just gotten in country, was part of this. And then there was I believe it was a Russian reporter. I don't know his name, was on that truck. But that was not a showstopper, but it was an emotional hit on the entire battalion, that the bad guys had this ability now to catastrophically destroy these vehicles. When we went into Bakuba, it was our battalion, 520 Infantry. Battalion's about 650 guys. After this battle wraps and the Army has the big picture of what happened, after we were done, we got told that military intelligence estimated that there was over 2,000 Al-Qaeda members in this city. Wow. We didn't know that rolling in, and we didn't know that on the first day. When all this went down, we had no idea what we were walking into.
So you had 650 guys fighting 2,000.
Yeah. Outnumbered 3-1 going in. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, as a U.S. military, I love those odds, but yeah, outnumbered 3-1. And I wish we would have known it going in. I think that first day would have been different if we would have known that, because we went out with the mindset of, let's go knock on doors. Let's talk to the civilians and see what's going on. And also what we found very early on, the first day and early on, is that the civilians wouldn't talk to us. This city it was a ghost town. The only thing that moved was shooting at you. When we would talk to civilians in their home, they wouldn't give any information. And I think at that time, Al-Qaeda was in control of that city.
Yeah, and they scared them.
And they scared them. Al-Qaeda, we had reports that they had kind of shanghaied all the food shipments. They were in with the Iraqi police. They were in with the Iraqi army, and they were really in control. And I think that the civilians were just scared to work with us or give us information in fear of their own lives. So as the colonel's radio operator, I've got 2 radios on my back. So usually there's usually a company that's kind of the main effort. One of the companies is going to be, spearheading whatever operation we're running. So I would typically have one radio on that frequency to communicate with that company. And then the other radio would rotate. We'd have a channel or a frequency that we call the fires channel. And a lot of times there's multiple people on that frequency. So you're going to have, if you have helicopters up supporting you, the Apaches, if you have any fixed wing aircraft up supporting you, outside of urban areas, a lot of times you still have field artillery supporting you. So anything that's going to provide what we call indirect fire is going to be on that fires frequency. That way we can call them, we can identify who we're looking for, whether it's the helicopters, the fixed wing, artillery, whatever, and get them to do something we need them to do. After losing so many brothers in arms, there's times to where it's really, really hard to keep your military bearing, right? We're soldiers, we are professionals in our business. It's hard to, especially like I know personally when Jason got killed, and I was still on my time off from when I got knocked out. The first day that I got in a truck to roll back out on mission when I was cleared to go, there was a rage inside of me. I was so mad. I was so emotional. There was that little part of me that was like, I just want to kill them all. They've killed my best friend. They've killed the ACO 6. They've killed all these guys. They've wounded these guys. And all we're doing is here to help. It's that frustration, that emotion. But you have to tuck that away. You can't go out there and operate emotionally like that. You can't go out there and just kill them all, as much as you want to. And that's hard, and I think that's a lot of what soldiers struggle with, is you can't let the emotion get the best of you, but when you tuck it away, it eats away at you. So 10 years later at a reunion for the Battle of Bakuba, I run into Jack Vantris, who was in the vehicle behind us and was looking at me when the bomb went off. And he had asked me, do you remember what happened? I said, oh yeah. I told him what I shared with you. And he kind of laughed. He says, that's not what happened at all. I said, well, what happened? He said, I was looking right at you when the bomb went off. He said, when the bomb went off, He says, I bent backwards 90 degrees at the back and hit flat on my back on top of the truck. And he says, I thought you broke your back. He says, and then when you hit, he goes, your body came, flailing forward. He says, and you hit like, kind of on the front, and then you fell in the truck. And he says, I thought you were dead. And I had no idea. And
no
I don't,
recollection of that whatsoever.
No, and I don't know why my brain had such a vivid memory of something that's not how it happened. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy what our brains do to us.
Yeah, how do they protect us potentially, right?
Yeah. I had no idea that day was going to kick off. I mean, probably even to this day, all these years later, the worst week of that battalion's history.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, I was on the base. Our unit was out. So the colonel and sergeant major and them were doing a foot patrol in the city. They got ambushed. And so Alpha Company was in the area, and Alpha Company sends some guys to go help in vehicles. And one of the vehicles going to help was struck by a deep buried ID. And it completely destroyed the vehicle, flipped it onto its roof. It killed 6 soldiers and a reporter in the back. A lot of those guys I knew. The driver was the only survivor. Larry Clark, good friend of mine, still friends to this day. And those guys, that was a blow, not just to me personally, like Jesse Williams, but to the entire battalion. Sergeant Romeo had deployed with us the first time in 2003, 2004. Everybody loved him. He was just a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Harkins, Sergeant Harkins, he had deployed in 2003, 2004 with us. Everybody knew him. Harkins was a warrior, man. That guy wasn't scared of anything. He was just a warrior. Bradshaw and Alexander, 2 of the other guys, I had trained them as radio operators.
Oh.
I didn't hang out with them, drink beer with them, but I knew them, and I had spent time with them. Lewis and Purcell, I didn't know them. So again, there's that connection of it's still horrible, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but I didn't know them as much as I knew the other guys. And that was, I think that when that happened, everybody wished that we could have just said, hey, time out. We need to mourn now. That's huge. Losing 6 guys in one day.
And so what was life like in Germany?
Life in the fast lane.
Was it?
So
Baptism by fire?
I got in with a unit, made some friends really quickly. I was in a air defense unit, Patriot missiles, so they shoot down incoming missiles, and made a lot of good friends. And as any 19-year-old in a foreign country where it's legal to drink, we had a lot of fun. The beautiful thing was I was able to travel Europe. You could take weekend trips or 4-day weekend trips at a very discounted rate through the military services. While I was there, I went to the Czech Republic, I went to Paris, France, went to Italy. I was able to take trips and go see all these exotic foreign places that I never thought I'd be able to.
That's cool.
And so it was really awesome, but time just went by so fast because we were always on the go. And I got a front row seat to our leadership. I was I was present, during their planning meetings, when they're planning operations and they're thinking of all the million different possibilities that can happen and contingency on contingency. And it was cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to see these military minds in action, and our leadership was top notch. They were better than I'd ever seen. I'd been in, this is 2006, 2007, I'd been in 7 years.
Yep.
I'd had a lot of chains of command, and these guys were just top notch. And it blew my mind that you can't plan for everything in combat. Stuff happens. Right. But it seemed like they did have a plan for everything. And I'll be honest, man, I contribute our battalion leadership to saving a lot of lives. We ended up getting in a really bad battle at the end of this deployment that lasted for several months, and it was bad. And I think that this leadership saved lives, even with the lives that we lost, because of their knowledge and know-how.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it was great.
People want to know that.